Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Rojo, Convicts Perspective, joined by my boy, my homie, Big Flacco in the building. And we hope you're having a good start to your new year and all that good stuff that comes along with that, getting back to work, getting back to school, staying positive, getting that money. Today, we're going to talk about them other kinds of groups, man. The ones on the other side of the wall, you know what I mean? Flacco, you tell them what you know, bro.
We're going to be talking about the S.N.Y gangs, man, their origins, man. And, we're going to go to the top two that are pretty much recognized as being instrumental in the S.N.Y push behind the walls, man. And I'm going to go into a little bit of history, a little bit about both groups. And we already know it's the 2-5ers and Northern Riders, man. And the thing that's interesting about both these groups is how they've been able to be on these S.N.Y yards. And this is where they're having their push. This is where their movement is. This is where their gang is, their organization. Both these groups did not originate on S.N.Y yards. These are facts, okay? The 2-5ers, man, okay, I've done a little bit of history, talked to some people from the other side, man, that have filled me in on some information about the 2-5ers a little bit, man. Neither me or Rojo have ever been on an S.N.Y yard or 50-50 yard. You know what I mean? Those are facts. So it's hard for me to go into personal experiences with these groups, but I'm able to still accumulate a little bit of information for you guys and give a perspective of it. The 2-5ers started in the early 90s. Some say around 91, 92, 93, 94, around that time era, man. And as far as its forefathers of its foundation, it wasn't, I don't have the particular person who first started off, right? But one of the most influential 2-5 members was an ex-MA member named Haas from Clanton. Okay, around 1994, he started doing a push into his hood, Clanton at that time, as well as any other individuals who were deemed no good by the big homies down south. Okay, now back in the 94s, it's kind of a replica of the New Flowers a little bit. There was no S.N.Y yards back at that time. Rojo remembers it back then. If you were not active, you'd get to send yards. So what these groups started to do, right, was when you got to these yards, it was if you were active homeboy pushing that MA line, you had to go. I mean, I think at one time Tehachapi was a real stronghold. They didn't have a lot of yards, but they had established a couple yards, a couple prisons, yards in certain prisons throughout the years. The same thing with the New Flowers, man, which you're going to have a little bit discrepancies when you talk about the New Flowers. There's actually active New Flowers who are currently in Salinas Valley on C Yard. They do not acknowledge any of the New Flowers who claim New Flowers in the S.N.Y yards. They're another group that, its origins started up in High Desert in the early 90s with Fast Eddie Barra, with No Reina from Modesto, from Sacra, and with Memo from out there in Portersville. Those were some influential members. And see, at that time, how everything was reacting was the same thing with the Southerners and Northerners, right? These were individuals that they believed themselves to be homeboys, but they were no longer pushing that Nuestra Raza NF line. So when anybody ever got to those yards, they would take off on them, right? So somewhere along the lines, the New Flowers have evolved to where you have two factions now, one on the S.N.Y side, one on the GP side. The GP side, it doesn't have a lot of members. Same thing with the 2-5ers. Now, the Northern Riders, right, as we've all discussed before, Badass Snoop, there's going to be a lot of discrepancies about how he got deemed no good. I was actually on the yard with him in the 90s, and there's a lot of people who say that he was already in the process of starting his Northern Rider movement, or pretty much planting the seed in individuals about the things that he did not like that he's seen on that yard. Now, bear in mind, in defense to Snoop, right, which people don't know, he was on a yard where there was a degenerate individual named Tito, Ramon Arriaga, who was already deemed no good since around 97, I want to say. Maybe 95, maybe 96. He was deemed no good when he left Tracy and went to Solano. He had established the wall around himself, you know what I'm saying? With a lot of young NR members that he had recruited, a lot of people that were associates. I was one of those ones that was aligned, working under Tito at that time. I was a young kid, blind to a lot of stuff. And Snoop didn't like what he was seeing. So that already left a bad taste in his mouth, seeing NR members that were in leadership out there on heroin and so forth, man. And, Snoop's attitude, I used to talk to him, was he just wanted to get off, because he was a YA cat. These are the enemy. Why are we even fraternizing with them? I mean, he got off and put in some work a couple times, man. Had a falling out issue with with Rascal while he was there. I don't know the personal details. I only know what Rascal told me, and his story is still the same 22 years later. I will say that on his behalf. But the reasons why further I heard that he got deemed no good was two reasons. One was an individual named Paul Giron, right? Canine from Sakura. He was an NR member. I actually did some time with him, man, when he got out around this time. So he had paroled, and Snoop was out there in the streets, and he was doing his little thing. Canine ends up showing up there with a Rather Wood, a non-affiliate. Snoop didn't like that. Get that dude away from my fucking house. And then Nine tried to catch a little attitude with him. Tried to go to his trunk. Snoop came out with that shotgun, started blasting, doing his thing, right? Now, the other theory is stuff that happened between him and Spider Fabella, right? Who's an NF member, who was out there, you know, plugged in, calling up Snoop, hey, what's good with the Carnal and all this stuff, right? And the story has it, man, that Spider kept on calling him, got fronted some work. Spider, next thing you know, went MIA. Now, anybody knows Spider from Sakura? This is typical Spider, man. There's not a lot of good things people have to say about this dude and his business dealings. Snoop being about his business, you better have my fucking money, right? Snoop gets to Tracy, he gets into a little conflict out there, gets to the hole. When he gets to the hole, he's by Spider. He starts confronting Spider about his money, and pretty much told him, you know, man, I'm gonna beat you, you know what, when we go out to yard. So from there, Snoop went to yard. The first security post, he took off. You know what I mean? I heard that he went a couple times. They hit him a couple times, and they didn't do nothing. And he still handled his business. You know what I mean? And that's where the founding of the Northern Riders started. Now, originally, Snoop did not go to no S.N.Y yard at this time. He went up to High Desert. I forgot what yard it was, but there was a yard with New Flowers on the yard as well that was still established. They ended up losing that yard because of some issues with the Samoans on that yard, right? That occurred between the Flowers, and I think some of the riders got involved as well. And somewhere along the lines, I don't know how this deal package came about, man, for the 2-5ers. Like I said, they've had a lot of influential members. The 2-5ers were originally just like the Northern Riders and like the New Flowers. They were on this main lines with active cash. And if you were active, you know what I mean? They were going to rock against you. Both these groups were checking paperwork at that time. Both of them were doing all the GP things, except for they weren't pushing no hard line politics. That was the difference. Every man for himself, basically. Somewhere around the lines, with all these S.N.Y groups, some of them ended up going to the S.N.Y groups. You know what I mean? And I talked to a New Flower that, you know, that's active on the Sea Yard. Rojo knows what I'm talking about, man. And he personally told us, man, that, you know, where Snoop messed up, man, was, you know, there was a lot of them that didn't want to lock it up, didn't want to go S.N.Y. They had a fight to get their yards to this day. And that a lot of them probably would have became Northern Riders if that movement wouldn't have been taken to the S.N.Y side. That's where their existence are. So somewhere along the lines, administration created it. I don't know what it is. Too much people getting off with each other. They decided to start putting people on these S.N.Y yards. Now, the only way that you can be on S.N.Y yard, from my understanding, is either you got to debrief or request it. Now, all these groups, you know what I mean? You can't debrief. You're not supposed to have told. You're not supposed to be doing that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how it is to go on S.N.Y. I never have. But I would think you would have to request to go out there to a cop and basically PCing up. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little bit of the history about them. We already know the tattoos with the names for the 2-5ers. We're going to go into a few other groups, the Pesetas, Dos Cincos, 2-5ers, you know, the Northern Riders, the Bunny, the Wedgut Bird with the, you know what I'm saying, the bunny that's in the head, the NR stuff. You have all this different stuff, man. And because of these groups, you started to have a lot of other groups. Now, people don't realize, man, I know I'm rambling on, but I know a little bit of information because I was keeping track and monitoring the activities of all these groups at one time. You know what I'm saying? I was employed at one time at a set facility where I was at, the SHU, because I wasn't allowed to go to group yard to play off like I wasn't active to get information from all these, you know what I'm saying, degenerate factions, because I was in one pod, they were in the other pod. They didn't know what communication. So when I went to the walk alone, you know what I mean, they have the group yards, right? To where you could talk through the cracks. I was advised the door popped open, I can get to that yard to go get that ass. But I was to go out there and befriend these individuals. So I started finding out about different groups, like such thing as Northside Structure Killer, Capital Punishment, Bro Busters. These are all groups that existed in the 90s, right? From certain areas. And they had like small pockets in certain prisons. And a lot of times what would happen was they would go to yards that were mainly like predominantly ran by Southerners, or yards where there was no active homeboys like Jamestown, you know what I'm saying, San Luis Obispo, Lancaster, Tehachapi, you know, as northern groups. And they would go to these facilities and they would tell them that, no, we don't bang that Norte here. We're not Norteños. We're our own thing. So then therefore they would be able to coexist on those yards because they were not recognized as Norteños on those yards. So lo and behold, a lot of these groups started getting pushed to, you know, the S.N.Y side, man. And you have things like you have this new one, Nuestra Cosa, which are a lot of ex-Northern Riders. You have dudes I've seen that have gone from NLR, Nazi lowriders, into Northern Riders. You've had ex-NR members become 2-5ers. You know what I'm saying? You have the Zapatistas, you have the, what is it, the independent riders, you have, you know, the gay boy gangsters are even out there doing their thing, bro. Rojo's laughing, man. And, you know, it's an oxymoron situation, guys. And I try to comprehend it. You know what I'm saying? I try to play out the tape. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not active. You know what I mean? I walked away from that life. I don't have to go back to jail or prison, but I don't see myself doing something, you know, leaving one particular group to go into a whole mess of a whole bunch of BS and then joining a whole other group. Yeah. I think they hit, you know what I mean? It doesn't make no sense to me, man, but there's a whole lot of other groups, man. There's Against the Brand. There's the Green Lighters, which were originally, like we discussed the other day, but now they're on the S.N.Y yards. There's a whole lot of different groups now.
Hey, I want to know more about the Bro Busters.
Bro Busters, bro. That was one of the names that was given, bro. Now these groups, bear in mind, they may have only been like 5 to 25 deep, man. But you know, and I know back in the days, if you have a well-seasoned soldado back in the 90s, right? We used to say this all the time, bro. We used to school dudes that came through in Queen Mas, right, to the 6 yard, that were Northerners that were going to go back out to the main lines. And we used to tell them, like, you know, they had that 90-day policy to get off on yards. And we're like, who's implementing this policy? That prison is. Well, that makes no sense. You got to go to a prison yard and see if it's salvageable first before you decide to get off. Then if you're sitting there programming like with your shirt on and fucking paying taxes and fucking, you know what I mean, giving up your canteen, then it's a fucking bad yard. Then you're basura. But we used to say, like, look, if 15 or 20 of us got to a yard that had on the 6 yard, you know how seasoned we were on that yard. Yeah. If we got to a yard fucking where there's like 80, 200 oppositions, our 20 is going to be solid. We're going to establish that fucking yard. We're going to plant our flag and we're going to be on that yard. You know what I'm saying? So a lot, you know what I mean? So a lot of these dudes had that same schooling and they were able to wiggle. They were able to go out there with that education and use it to establish their presence to where they could have their own safe haven. And this is all pre-S.N.Y. The origins of S.N.Y. were CDC created. They took these groups and they put them on S.N.Y. yards. So, but the truth of the matter, what no one talks about, it's the same thing with the Bulldogs, is the 2-5ers, the Northern Riders, you know, the New Flower factions. Like I said, there's 2 factions basically of them. I mean, they were out there in the main lines back in the days. They weren't hiding. There was no place. If you were, the only place that you had yards that you considered that were soft, like maybe CMC East, where you had a lot of hidden dropouts out there. And they'd send youngsters when there was no prison political push. Right. If you were 20 years old, you weren't really involved in politics at that time in the 90s. You had places like Jamestown.
First termers, they sent first termers there.
Yeah, where I got sent there as a first termer.
Yeah, I got sent to Susanville 1 yard as a first termer.
Jamestown was another one, right? Where you had active Southerners and whites and blacks, but the Northerners were all not active. They were able to establish their pockets and they were working with administration. Some worked with administration, some didn't. You know what I'm saying? It's out of these groups. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of propaganda that's pushed out there about these groups that we were taught that I don't know how much of it is verified and true, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because we've come to learn a lot of things that we've read through certain histories that are totally not in line with the truth. You know what I mean? Like we've talked
about the flower guys, man. Yeah.
No. Well, there is New Flowers on the S.N.Y. side now, but they're rejected by the original New Flowers.
Yeah.
So the New Flowers.
That's what I heard too. But the main thing that tripped me out about them is like we were taught back when I was in Pelican Bay, that like the second time I was in the Bay, that they were like the main up and coming rival group, and that they were like you know, super educated and super serio and super up to par, just like we were. Come to find out, man, they're really lax, and you know, they don't got a lot of rules, and they're just, you know what I mean? Like it was just a hell of different information, you know.
They were, I mean, some of them were, a lot of them that went that route, they weren't punks. So, you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
You know, they were kind of like the bulldogs, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like,
they
it's
don't
kind of hard.
accept none of those types.
So when you look at it, okay, look, in the North Day NF sides, right? In the North Day and NF sides, if you leave their faction and start your own, you're considered a degenerate faction. You know what I mean? But in their eyes, they're considering themselves active.
Right.
They just don't align with the beliefs of the NF or NR. They don't want to fall under anybody's umbrella.
Yeah, we
Same
ain't no PCs, we ain't no debriefers or none of that shit. We just say they do their Norte that way, we do ours like that. That's what that's
Yeah.
you know.
And so, now you got different groups on these S.N.Y yards. You know what I mean? It was self-made, created by administration. Before you had certain yards, I think when you got to high desert, you didn't want to go to D yard back in the days. That was a no-no. I mean, D lower, I think at the time, I forget, man, because we used to get the filters. You didn't want to go to certain prisons in Tehachapi back then. You know what I mean? Jamestown, Avenal had a couple bad yards. You know what I mean? So there were certain places like that where, you know what I mean? And they were able to wiggle though too, because they would be able to go to these yards, especially, New Flowers or Northern Riders, Capital Punishment, all these little small group factions, right? Could go to a yard where there's bulldogs, where it's an active prison yard, and sit there and say, you know what I mean? Oh, we don't push that. We're not pushing that politics. You know what I mean? Same thing with Salinas Valley. You know what I mean? Back in the 90s, there was a lot of homeboys that were North Daniels, and this is before S.N.Y. But if you came pushing politics, if you acknowledge yourself as being a bro, there was a couple of yards that were all bad. Fast Eddie was on that yard as well. You know what I'm saying? So there was
trip, bro. The first time I ever went to prison, when I rolled up to San Quentin, I didn't hear nothing about, hey, if you go to this yard, you got to do this, or this yard's bad, or nothing. Man, we just go to whatever yard, man. If it looks funny, you handle your business.
Yeah.
I don't know. It changed, It just over time, man, they figured out, if you go, this level's bad, this institution, this is a PCR. They didn't have that when I first came to the institution. There wasn't really there wasn't no 50-50. There wasn't no S.N.Y.
There was none of that, bro.
Yards that either we controlled or the Southsiders controlled. That's all there was.
Yeah. So a lot, I mean, but then you also had these small groups that would have a yard. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it was only like 3 or 4 yards throughout the whole system, and it wasn't even known by everybody.
The 2-5ers would have a yard, and it's kind of like the same twist. You know what I mean? The 2-5ers would establish their yard.
I never even heard of them until the 2000s. That's crazy.
But they've been around since the 90s. Like I said, one of their main fucking persons that was pushing that line, that had a lot of influence, was Haas from Clanton, who was a big homie from down that way. I think he got involved in it, from my understanding, was around 1994. And he started to try to recruit people from his own hood, as well as any other neighborhoods that were falling out of sync, or were green lighted, or had issues, or didn't want to pay taxes, man. He didn't debrief, he didn't do all that. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of formed his own wall of protection.
Right.
So a lot of, you know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. Same thing with Snoop. I don't know where the Riders went from GP, because they were on GP for a little bit till about 2002. Then they all got moved out. You know what I mean? I don't know if there was an administration agreement. I mean, I've heard different stories. Yeah, we'll go out there to these yards. We can program. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I do know that now all these groups are prevalent out there on these yards nowadays. You know what I'm saying? There's more groups than we've even discussed on here.
There's probably 10, 12 more that just got like 7, 8, 10 guys on each yard or something, on specific yards or whatnot. It's a trip, bro. Hey, like I said, man, the only one I had heard about prior to 2000 was New Flowers. When I was in Pelican Bay with Tibbs and Corny in DC in 95 and 96, they were a hot topic, because they were supposed to be like a really militant, structured, clandestine, really worthy adversary that may be able to give the homies a run for their money. That's how it was presented to us at that point.
They had established a few yards, bro. They didn't establish no prisons. They established certain yards, bro. Like,
that was the #1 enemy. You know what I mean? Over everybody at the time. It was Flowers, then probably the Bulldogs, then probably some whatever. But
And there's been a lot of misleading information that they had their own regiments, they had their own this and that.
yeah, their numbers were greatly exaggerated, all that kind of stuff, bro.
I think though what happened is you had individuals who were pushing that, who aligned with it, maybe they were part of that, who came out to the streets and decided to take some of their education and apply it to benefiting themselves. Why not? You know what I mean? If you find people that have a common goal and a common enemy, it's easy to recruit. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, man. I heard there's a new real treacherous one out there too, that you're supposed to have a body to join and all kinds of shit. I can't remember what they call it. What did you hear? You know what I'm talking about?
Nuestra cosa.
Is that what it is? I heard there's supposed to be a
Yeah,
body
but they got about 30 or 40. I mean, is it a body in the walls or a body on the streets?
There's no way it could be a body in the walls because we know all their members just by looking at the at the
You know what I'm saying?
why yard killings. You know what I'm saying? They ain't killing people like that, you know, but maybe they just got to have a murder under their belt.
I know a few people that were on that though. I mean, like fucking a couple of those were ex-riders though that became that. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, they've had their own split too. They've all had their own beliefs to where like some people wanted to break away from
I've heard
Snoop.
they're beefing right now.
Yeah.
You know,
You know what I'm saying?
different little group segments of them, you know.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I've met a few of those. That's the only group that I've met a few people in, and that's just because I went to the hole in 06 to Tracy. And the first thing I pull up, all I'm hearing is all this yelling out the door, Norteño Rider, and this and that. I'm like, and you know me, I'm just chill. I'm in there looking, listening. Like, man, where the fuck they got me, bro? You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason I ever came across them. I've never came across no Deuce Fivers, no, you know, I've talked to some Flowers now, but that's just since I had the channel and they've reached out to me, you know, but never ran into nobody, bro. Like, except them Northern Riders, man. So I don't really know none of their other get downs and stuff, man. But you know, I've heard some things.
You know, it was bad though, bro. Because I remember like the first dita in Quinton and Carson section, man. They used to go off, bro. You know what I'm saying? They used to fucking sell soldiers and all kinds. I'm not saying any of these groups, but the inactive dudes, man. And I'm just like, man, you know, I don't plan on ever going to prison. I don't ever plan to do any of that, man. But you know, based upon my prior conduct as a convict, you know what I'm saying, knowing right from wrong. Me personally, I could never be on the cell soldier and I could never be on all that, man. It isn't in me, bro. I have a hard enough time talking smack to trolls on here because I feel like I'm cell soldier if I do. You know what I mean? I still try to hold myself up to certain standards, even though I'm not fucking involved in the mix. You know what I'm saying? I just could never see myself, I can never belittle myself to lower standards. And I'm not saying any of these groups do that. Those could just be individuals who are just fucking idiots, who are fucking mad, they're fucking got hit, they got deemed no good, and just have that hate for the homeboys. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Bro,
you know,
I remember the first time
I do remember fucking seeing fucking Snoop, man. And I tried telling him this when I actually talked to him on the phone not long ago. I'm like, man, you were fucking, I seen you in the county jail, bro, and you were fucking in a holding tank, and he was fucking banging on the fucking thing and calling me everything, you fucking, you know, this and that, you piece of shit, fucking, I'll beat your ass and all this shit, man. And you know what I mean? The bad thing about Snoop, right, is even though he'll be talking all that shit, if that door pops, he's gonna bring it. You know what I'm saying? That's just his character. I was bailing out, man, in 2003, man. I will never forget it, man. He probably doesn't even remember, man, but he was in the county jail for his current case, and I was bailing out, man. And he seen me, and I remembered him from Solano, and I'm trying to think, okay, I mean, I seen the brown, which in the brown in there is PC'd up. You know what I'm saying? And he just was talking a whole bunch of smack, man, banging on the wall, and I'm like, dude, when are they gonna come pick me up, man? I'm like, you know what I mean? I noticed, I go, what's he doing here, man? I mean, I'm thinking in my head, like, man, he's catting off for reals. He must have been getting into with the CO. I think maybe he got arrested at that time, bro. Was just going through it, man, because he had those serious charges, man. But up into that, I really don't have any particular experiences, good or bad, with any of these individuals. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I won't, a lot of dudes I know that were actually active with the regiment, that were on crews and stuff, a lot of them that became Northern Riders. You know what I mean? One dude used to work with my crew back in the day. He's a Northern Rider now. You know what I'm saying? And I know that these dudes are with the business, the ones I know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how their character has changed, because it seems like when you're part of that, the politics, right? You're controlled by how the character you have to present. You're up to that persona of, you have to be professional, you have to be, you know, elite, you're striving, and you're trying to reach a pinnacle of what you want to be. as maybe a familiano, as maybe as an NR member, or just recognized. I don't know how that changes in people when they become this. Do their true colors come out now? Is this who they always want to be? Because like a lot of times, like I said this before, people could get locked up. You know, they're bros, they're insulados, whatever. All of a sudden, their discipline's up high. You know what I'm saying? They're disciplining people. They're doing burpees. They're writing their essays. They're doing everything to a T. Their cells clean, everything. Then they go to the streets. And they start hitting that piso, or they start hitting that fucking thing. All their morals and things that they have established themselves comes out.
Right.
So I don't know if it's all a front, because let's just keep it real, bro. Recognition is everything. Ego and recognition is everything when you come from that lifestyle we come from. The gang criminal lifestyle, your ego. You don't just join these groups because fucking you want to join them. Okay, I think it's good to join this club. No, you're doing it because you like the recognition, the perks, the benefits, the respect, and how you look out by your peers. That's why you join. That's why you strive. There's no other reason. So when you get that taken from you and you look at it in dishonorable, you know what I'm saying, eyes, you may decide to take that whole, you know what I'm saying, yourself and to join something else because you're missing that void. You know what I'm saying? You're redirecting everything that you feel negative maybe about yourself and putting it into something else. And some dudes just don't care, bro. Some dudes are like, you know what? F the homies. They go in the county jail. They go in the county jail. They're going S.N.Y.
Yeah, bro. This one dude told me, man, my boy from Hayward, Donnie Lewis, man. When you're in prison, when you leave your cell, it's like putting on a Halloween mask, and you're going out to the yard and being this character around the homies. It's not necessarily the real you. You know what I mean? True. Sometimes you can take it off in your cell if you got a cool cellie. Sometimes that mask stays on if you got one of them super serio, you know, go tell on you for everything type of cellies. You know what I mean? I can't stand them dudes, bro.
But Ro, let me ask you this though, Ro.
Man, shut up. You know what I mean?
Oh, sorry.
No, not you. It's like wearing a mask.
Let me ask you this though. I really believe this too, bro. I think sometimes you become ingrained in wanting to be someone so much, right, that you emulate everything that you see in other people. Like, you know, you get around certain C's, certain bros, and you want to be just like that. That you start as something that you don't think you are. Next thing you know, you're that person. You start to believe that that's you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You take that with you. And I think that's the hardest thing for anybody to go through. Yeah, when I was like, F this lifestyle, man, it was fucking hard, man. You know what I mean? You know, I wanted to sit there and explain everything, reason why, man. I'm like, you know what I mean? Trying to self-justify it, trying to spin it, trying to put everything on it, man, because, you know, I felt I was done wrong. You know what I'm saying? I had a lot of loyal service to everything that I put forth, contributed a lot of money, made a lot of sacrifices, seasoned a lot of individuals. I did everything I was supposed to, man, that I felt that honor and respect was supposed to be given to me, because that's the bad thing about, you got to realize this in life, man. This is for any youngster. The core beliefs and ideologies and principles of the cause of the Norte and all that, they're beautiful things. They're self-worthy goals. They're good things. They're good teachings, and they can better you as a man. Sometimes when you're indoctrinated and that those ideals are instilled in you, you start to think things are supposed to be perfect in this lifestyle, but you're dealing with fucking men who are fucking criminals, crooks, you know, deceitful, all that negative stuff, man. Who are not going to make those fair and just decisions. They're going to make self-serving decisions. You're going to see disloyalty. You're going to see betrayal. Yeah. So when you walk in that lifestyle, you got to realize, man, that whether it's on the GP side, S.N.Y side, whatever it may be, you're still dealing with faulty individuals that may not have your best interests at heart. That's why the message for today: you don't have to worry about joining no active gang or S.N.Y gang if you don't go to prison. Period. Because either way, you're gonna suffer the same consequences, whether you're on the GP side or S.N.Y side. You're still going to be dealing with faulty individuals. You think every individual who's in good standings or holding leadership positions has your best interests at heart? Hell no. You wouldn't have people like Lencho, Dancing Bear, and fucking Spider, and all these other cats. You know what I mean? But on both sides, it is. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's some good individuals too. But it's a corrupt ballgame. It's prison politics. You know what I mean? Criminals. We get it, man. You know what I mean? The focus gets taken away from the benefit of the people, and the focus becomes the benefit of me when you're dealing with self-serving individuals.
100%. God damn, Flacco, you murdered this episode. I didn't even get to say much. Good job, Flacco. Hey, you expressed everything, man. I agree with you fully on every one of your points, though, man. But that is the lesson of the day. Like Flacco said, man, be out there with your family, have that honest 9 to 5, do what you need to do to stay out of there, bro, because there's nothing good in there. Man, there is some good education you can learn. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. But nowadays, you can pull that same stuff up on the internet, bro, and read it and break it down to yourself. You don't need to go in prison to get it no more. You know what I'm saying? So do the right thing, man. You don't got to worry about lynchos and dancing bears and big owls. You know what I mean? Trying to take your own.
And you won't play a victim. You can't play a victim role if you're never involved. If you're not living that life, going to prison, jail, you can't sit there and say, oh man, I was victimized by the homeboys. Favoritism happened, because that's just gonna fucking happen regardless, man. Yeah, I mean, you see every day. Don't get
You're gonna get
yourself
in trouble for some
there.
shit that you thought you could never, nobody would ever get in trouble for in the history of being a grown man in prison. You're gonna get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
You know, so, all right, man. We appreciate you guys. We'll join you later for the live, man. That's a little bit about the history of the S.N.Ys, especially the Deuce 5 and the NRs, the Northern Riders. And man, we'll talk a little bit about some more as we learn it. We're not too familiar with anybody other than the Northern Riders and the Deuce 5. You know, the other ones are more, you know, smaller, newer, harder to come across their individuals to tell us about their stuff. But
But hey,
you guys.
one point, Rojo, too, though, right? Even some of these groups on the S.N.Y now are forming off the same reasons, off the threat of oppression, bro. The threat of attacks, the threat of being victimized. So anytime you have groups that take advantage of, I mean, oppression is always going to be the number one factor. The threat of oppression is going to be the number one factor for any uprising of any group, period.
And for all you people that might be looking at time that are in that lifestyle and you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to do all them burpees, and you go to the S.N.Y.R. S.N.Y.R. is dangerous, bro. There's more slashings and stabbings and dashings and whatever else. What do we do? Smashing and dashing and sliding. There's all that.
Yeah, because
they are doing their thing on the S.N.Y. yards. Don't think they're not. Don't think it's going to be like some little paradise where you don't have to worry about nothing, because you're misinformed. They'll peel your cap out there. So just don't go to prison. You don't got to worry about actives, riders. You don't got to worry about that.
Yeah.
Straight up. Have a good day, YouTube. We'll holler at you later. Appreciate you. Enjoy the new year.